Your ball of clay is going to be about a pound, not very much, smaller than my hand. Okay, that's what we're going to be working with. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pat it into a ball, and I know where it is on the wheel, I'm going to put it as close to center as possible, and I'm going to pound it one time. Now I'm going to push, and again I'm just pushing down on the clay so I can make sure that it's going to stay on top of the wheel head. So I can make sure it's not going to slip off. Okay, so I'm pushing it down. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finger and I'm just kind of smearing it to the wheel head. Now, that is going to ensure that I can put some water on here now. Alright, for the wheel, it turns counterclockwise for everyone. Raise your hand if you're left-handed in here.
Green.
2 freaks in the room. Just kidding.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. You're still going to do this the way I'm going to show you. If you have problems with it, I'll show you the other way. Okay? Same thing, Brian. Okay, so it's going to turn this way. Whenever I'm going to be working inside, and I'll go over that in a minute, your left hand's going to go inside, and your right hand's going to go on the outside. You want to be able to pull the clay. You want the clay to go through your hands like you're pulling it, rather than going on this side where you're pushing the clay. If you push the clay, it's going to fall off the wheel. It's not going to come up even. Okay, so my goal is to be here where I'm pulling it instead of pushing. Right hand side, I'm pulling it. Left hand, I would be pushing. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. I'm going to turn the wheel on. And again, I still haven't added any water. I'm going to turn it on, not full speed, but I am going to go fast. And you can hear the whining of the wheel. That's a good speed for centering. Centering speed, you're going to go a little bit faster than you are for anything else. Next thing I'm going to do is find my sponge, which is not in here. Is there a sponge over there? Okay, I'm going to take my sponge, get it wet, get both my hands wet, and again I only have this about halfway full of water. I'm going to get my whole piece wet, and it might squirt on you a little bit, that's okay. And I'm going to have my hands, that water is going to be a lubricant, so the clay will flow through my hands. The areas you're going to touch, right here on the fatty part of your hand, that is the part that's going to be doing the centering. Also, your legs need to be out, elbows on top or inside. I'm just going to take my hands, push them together, and pull up. Now you can see how the clay was moving me just now. Okay? Your goal is to make it not move. You want to control the clay. So I'm going to do one more thing. So I'm going to get it wet a little bit more. I'm not soaking it by any means. There's not very much water in my wheel well here. I'm going to take my right hand, and this shallow part of my hand I'm going to put at a 45-degree angle, and you can see how it's moving me right now. Once I apply some force, it's not going to move me. Okay, and it's going to start to be centered. I'm going to go a little bit slower. That's better. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do this a couple times. One thing that it's doing, it's compressing all the little clay particles together. Second thing it's doing is it's continuing to go back to the same position. I'm pulling a little bit of clay off of each time, but not very much. So I'm going to push together and pull up. And you can see my hands are the thing that's controlling. I'm pushing and I'm pulling up like this. And if you look at my feet, I'm pushing together with my knees, and my toes are coming up like on their tiptoes. So I am basically one unit kind of pulling it up all together. Get it wet again. Shallow part of my hand, and if I go slow here, you can kind of see it take its shape. Okay, right now this clay is centered. I'm going to do it one more time though. So I'm going to push and then back down. Anytime you have all this extra clay sticking to your hands, use your bucket, slide it off. All that little extra clay, all those little extra clay pieces, it's going to mess up your whole project. Okay? After I have it centered, I'm also going to clean up the wheel head, and I'm going to make a little groove in the bottom. I'm going to use my right hand, the back side of my thumb, my fingernail, and I'm just going to push it into it. And it's going to pull a little bit of clay off. Wipe that off. Alright, so it's centered. You'll say, Mr. Cavalier, could you check my project to make sure it's centered? I'll look down your name, make a check mark. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to start plunging, so you're going to make a hole in it. The easiest way to do this is you're going to use, I'm going to use my thumbs. In that groove I just made, I'm going to put my pinkies. My thumbs are going to go on top. I'm going to make a little hole. Okay? And in that hole, I'm just going to use my left hand. I use these two fingers, my ring finger and my middle finger, and I'm just going to plunge down until I think I'm about 1/4 of an inch from the bottom. Okay? And that's all I'm going to do for that step. Now that doesn't mean I have established the walls. It just means I have the bottom. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take those same two fingers, I'm going to put them on the inside, and I'm going to bring those fingers like this to my thumb. And then again, I'm just right here. I'm about, I don't know, what is that, 7 o'clock? Yeah, 7 o'clock. I'm going to squeeze it together just on the bottom. I'm not squeezing the whole thing, I'm just squeezing the bottom. So there will be, if you're picturing this, my fingers will be creating this area here. I'm just squeezing it like that. I'm going to add a little bit of water, and again, I'm just squeezing the bottom. Okay, and that's it. Now I make it look pretty easy. One thing you might have to do is just put your hand on the outside, because you can see this is getting a little bit out of center. Okay, so what I'm going to be looking for, you'll say, Mr. Cavalier, I'm done with this. Can you come look? And I'll turn your wheel off. And I'll just be putting my fingers, and there should be a lip there, so I can put my fingers underneath. The reason you have that lip is so you can start pulling this clay up. Okay? You never want to be working on your project, working on your throwing stuff. You never want to throw and turn your wheel off. Okay? So I don't want to center and then move something here while the wheel's off. You want your wheel to always be on. Anytime that I want to move the clay, I'm going to move it slow, because I'm going to be touching it in basically one spot, 360 degrees times how fast it's going. Okay? So I'm touching in one spot right there. Whatever I do that one spot, it's going to do that all the way around. So the more my hand twists and turns all over the place, the worse your project is going to be. Keep it in one spot. So I like to work about 5 o'clock here, so like right here. I'm going to put my left hand on the inside, right hand on the outside with the sponge. The sponge is not necessarily full of water, but it has some water in it. Okay? I'm going to push, and this area of my finger is going to be like a form. So I'm going to push the clay that's on the inside to my finger. And again, this is where I want to be stable. Once I push it to, I'm going to start pulling that up. All the way up as far as possible. And you can see all that little extra clay fell off of my hands. That's okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to compress the top. I'm just going to take the sponge and push down on the top. I haven't added any more water after I made the bottom walls, and you can see it's still a little bit not centered. And I'm going to try to fix it. I don't know if I can. I'm going to do another pull, and I just want to make sure I push, and I'm pulling up, and I'm really kind of taking my time on this. Okay? And I'm going to compress the top. The strongest piece the strongest part in your whole project, the thing that keeps everything together, is your rim. You don't want your rim to be coming out super thin. You don't want to just be like that. Because if it's super thin, that's going to happen. Can you fix this if that happens? Yes. Does somebody have a needle tool? That I can probably use. Okay. If that happens, that means I just pulled it up too thin. I'm going to cut it off just a little bit below. Okay? And that's all wasted clay now. Now obviously this is a very small little mug now. Alright, so I have my cylinder, and I'm just trying to make sure all my walls are pretty much the same. One last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a rib. I'm just going to push the rib on the side. What that does is it's going to pull all that extra slip on the outside off. It's going to make a nice dry surface so I can pick this thing up. Now, you're going to say, okay, Mr. Cavalier, I'm done. The walls are done. Will you hand me that wire tool, please? What I will do is I will come over to your project and I will slice it in half. Okay? And what you should have is an even bottom and even walls. Okay? This is my bottom's a little thin, but this is also, oh, I just didn't cut it all the way. It's actually pretty good. Okay, so I should have even everything here. And that's what I'm going to be looking for. Once I know that you can do this, you're going to be able to take a little bit more clay if you need to. I'm going to say nothing more than 2 pounds. Okay? Questions? Now, I will put that demo, go ahead and stop.